I would like to call this meeting to order, please. Please join us as our Mayor Pro Tem leads us in the flag salute.
Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem. City Clerk, could we please have the roll call?
Okay. Councilmember Crane? Councilmember Harmouche?
Present.
Councilmember Nagpal?
Present.
Councilmember Namgoon?
Present.
Mayor McGrew?
Present. Okay. That moves us on to public comments. Clerk, do we have any requests to speak from the public?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have one public comment. If we could please have High Flyer come forward.
Howdy, y'all. Mr. Mayor, council members, and all these beautiful people up here. I just came in Tennessee. My ex-wife's in Alabama. She's sitting back there still. Anyway, came in from Tennessee. We bought a house just recently, and I love Temecula. I just love things around here. Matter of fact, we're so far back in the prehistoric age down in Tennessee, we just got electricity a couple weeks ago, so it's really nice. But really, really enjoy the community here. You folks are doing a great job, except for one thing. I found one small little problem in Temecula. Mr. Mayor, you listening? Because I'm talking to you, Putty. You ready for this? Traffic. I'd never seen so many highfalutin automobiles coming down the road, on the freeway, on the sidewalks. They're all over the place. Now, I remember reading the newspaper in Temecula back in the early 90s that you had one of your members here actually came up with an idea that everybody poo-pooed. Well, I think the time is ripe for this idea to come to fruition. And this idea was one word: monorail. That's right. We need a monorail. You people have got one heck of a revenue source here with lots of sales taxes and other taxes and Dallas taxes. You got a lot of money coming in those coffers. So I think that if you begin this monorail system, you're going to alleviate all kinds of the traffic that I think a lot of people would start moving into Temecula, which would give you a stronger tax base, more business, more residential. I think you ought to think about building a monorail. And that's all I have to say for the next few moments, because I'm going to stare down that mayor. I don't think you're paying attention, buddy. I got a lot of friends who are going to vote here. You understand me? So by God, get that monorail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, are there any other requests to speak?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. That moves us on to City Council reports. I will go ahead and read the instructions. Reports by the members of the City Council on matters not on the agenda will be made at this time. A total not to exceed 10 minutes will be devoted to these reports. City Council, do you have any comments before we begin our session? With that, I'll comment on something. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today, and a very special thank you to the real City Council members for mentoring us and taking the time out to really pour into us and educate us in a real great opportunity. And also, big thank you to everyone else, all the other staff, for taking the time to spend with us. Would anyone else like to comment?
I would like to make a comment. This Monday, I attended an event known nationally as Read Across America, and as it went very well and a lot of high schoolers helped elementary school kids read and encourage them to read more, I did notice that there was a lack of children's books, and a lot of them were copies and doubles and triples. So I propose that Madam Manager looks into maybe having a day before Dr. Seuss Day where citizens of Temecula could come and donate their children's books. That way there is a plethora of books to choose from, and we can read more books with these children. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Crane. Are there any other comments from the City Council?
Yes. As a student of Great Oak High School, something that is a problem prevalent among myself and a lot of my peers are the bathrooms at our school. I'm not sure if this is also a problem at Temecula Valley or Chaparral, but at Great Oak, it is a very, very big issue that bothers a lot of the students. And if there was any way that, with the concurrence of my colleagues, if the city manager could maybe look into the school district and if there is any possible solutions that we could have or any improvements that could be made.
Thank you, Councilwoman Namgoon. Are there any other comments that would like to be made? No. Okay. That'll move us on to City Council business. So I'll begin with item 1, which is to receive a report on health effect of sugary beverages on child obesity. I now summon the staff report, please.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Marlene Arias, and I am Senior Management Analyst.
And my name is Quinn Balder, and I'm an Economic Developmental Analyst.
I'm Jacob Hilton. I'm an Economic Development Analyst.
And we are all here to talk to you about a proposed soda tax. Now, as you all know, the City of Temecula holds very high standards for their parks, and for 25 years now, we have been promoting a healthy, active lifestyle. Right now, we have over 40 public parks and many trails that we are currently trying to connect throughout the city. We also have many state-of-the-art recreational facilities. Now, in July of 2014, we as the staff were asked to look at ways to help sustain these parks at the highest quality and also help prepare for the quality of life master plan that we have here that obtains for the city. Now, through research, we have found that a way we could help this was to propose a soda tax. Now, we have the support of the community behind us with the Chamber of Commerce and public support. Now, as you all know, through our research, what we had done was we found out that the people of Temecula are gravitating towards a more healthy lifestyle. We see people gravitating towards healthier food options, such as the Eat that just opened up, as well as going for more organic produce. So we found that we also found that the Chamber of Commerce, small businesses, like this idea because they get more money back when people buy healthier beverages versus soda. Now, this tax would be used to provide a revenue stream to maintain the highest level of all city parks and recreational facilities for generations to come. This money from the tax would also provide additional revenue to partner with the developer to build a Temecula drive-in movie theater with trails around the premises to use during the day, which would help with this healthy lifestyle. It would also provide an economic incentive for patrons of markets and restaurants to choose healthier drink options. They would have a higher ROI for local businesses. This tax now is the tax we have currently is not enough to sustain our parks to the highest level. Also, through the surveys we conducted, the drive-in movie theater is something that people want, youth and families alike. This Temecula drive-in would be on this lot on Diaz, since the city does have land already plotted for use. The drive-in would also create jobs, and the revenue from the tax would implement a new stream of revenue which we have not had before.
Sugary sodas provide no health benefit. We found, based on our consultant report entitled Sugar Addiction Kills, that a 20-ounce bottle of soda contains 16 teaspoons of sugar, and a can of Coke contains 35 grams, and the World Health Organization states that we should only have 25 grams a day. The average American now drinks 50 gallons of soda a year. Child obesity has gone up from 79% to 91% since 1998. The level of consumption has raised type 2 diabetes in children when it used to be an adult-only disease. And the city of Berkeley attempted a similar tax where they charged 1 cent per ounce on soda, and it did pass. It's the first and only city to have this tax passed. And what we're trying to do is not as a steep tax as they did. And
So now we're going to talk about the financial benefit from this tax on sugary sodas. After speaking with our consultants, we found that Temecula citizens spend approximately $33.1 million on these sugary beverages every year. Now, as opposed to Berkeley's tax, we're not going to tax per ounce, but rather we're going to tax more of in a sales tax manner, doing a percentage off the purchase. So our plan is to use like a more gradual tax over time and gradually increase the amount of tax that we have on this beverage, so as to taper citizens off of buying these products rather than implement harsh tax from the beginning and discourage drinking these beverages altogether. Based off this $33.1 million number that we found is the number of or the amount of money Temeculans spend on soda each year, a 1.5% tax our first year will result in nearly $500,000 in revenue for the city, $496,500 to be exact. Now, our second year, we plan on doubling this tax, which would also double our profit, and we would receive $993,000 our second year. In the third year, the tax would double once again, and we would take home $1.986 million in revenue from this tax. The fourth year, it would double for the last time, and we would have $3.972 million from this tax. And finally, in the fifth year, the tax would stable out till its final percentage of 14% with a $4.634 million takeaway. Now, borrowing from the City of Berkeley's law, we do intend to keep small businesses guarded from this tax. So any business that does not have a net income of over $100,000 will be exempt from this tax. And the fiscal impact of this will be $180,000 to put the ballot initiative on the on the ballot for November of 2016. And if clearly from our bill, the price will offset if the act is passed. Because our revenue stream results in $12,081,500 in the first 5 years. If it is not passed, the economic development is planning on bringing in a Porsche dealer, and the sales tax from that dealership will offset the price. So our staff recommendation is that the City Council support putting the soda tax ballot measure on the ballot for November of 2016.
Thank you, staff, for your report. Does the council have any questions for staff? Councilwoman Harmouche?
I have a question. You guys mentioned that adding this tax would discourage individuals from purchasing sodas, for example, or soft drinks, and thus reduce obesity. But how would you respond to the argument of if you were to add a tax to soda, then others would just compensate for this reduction by switching to other high-calorie juices, for example, or any type of beverage that contains a lot of sugar? What would be your response to that?
So one of the things about this tax that we plan on imposing is that this tax will be placed on all beverages that do not have a juice content of over 25% of the beverage. So in this instance, if, let's say, an energy drink or something of that sort that isn't technically a soda but doesn't have over 25% content being juice would still be affected by this tax.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Harmouche. Councilman Mr. Nagpal.
Yes. So one of the first things that Ms. Arias mentioned was that people more recently now have already been gravitating to a more healthier lifestyle. They've already been making these changes. So why now should we impose a sales tax on these soft drinks if people are already making the initiative to move to a healthier lifestyle?
Well, we're deciding that we could help these people who have not transitioned yet. And also, the people who have made the transition, we feel that they are the ones who are supporting us. The people who want the tax see that if we're taxing something that they do not like, they're getting money back from it for the community, for a drive-in, for parks, and all of that.
Thank you.
I feel like one of the important things to point out is that we're emphasizing sustainability of our parks and sustainability at the highest level. And this is one way that we can get funding to continue our sustainability of our facilities at the highest level and continue making improvements on Temecula, as we are a progressive city and we need to progress in a direction that has this healthy lifestyle.
And one more point, one thing this is gonna do if we do build the drive-in theater, it's gonna create jobs, and we need jobs.
Thank you. Ms. Namgoon?
So you mentioned that the money that would come from the tax would go towards a drive-in movie theater, and like you mentioned, it would provide jobs and such. But this tax, as you would mention also, would gradually increase, and therefore I'm assuming the tax would just always be, it's not going to end. So once this movie theater is established and functioning as a business and can maintain itself, where would that money that we make in the future go?
So the tax does not have a sunset on it, you're correct, so it will not diminish after a certain time period. Now, the first portion of the tax will go to this drive-in movie theater because when we did our community outreach and our public workshops, that was something brought to our attention that the youth would want. And we felt, as we had given to the youth before with the establishment of our parks, and now we have over 40, we should give back to the next generation as well and appeal to their desire to have a drive-in movie theater. Now, this isn't going to be a public-run drive-in movie theater. This is going to be a private-run drive-in movie theater, as we are partnering with a developer, private developer. So all of our money after the establishment of this drive-in movie theater will be dedicated to improving upon our park system and making sure that Temecula is conveying the importance of having a healthy and active lifestyle. One thing to note about the drive-in movie theater is that we do intend on having a trail system around the drive-in movie theater, so people can make use of the movie theater during the day and use the trails to continue their active lifestyle.
Thank you. Mrs. Crane?
Thank you. You guys mentioned that there were two reasons for creating this soda tax. One was the revenue it would bring that we could give to our parks, and we could build that drive-in movie theater company. And the other was to fight obesity and help lead our citizens to a healthier lifestyle. And I wanted to point out and ask you guys if there was anything in your plan that would not only make those beverages more expensive, which would discourage behavior, but also to increase the access to substitutions, because some substitutions cost more and people turn towards the cheaper route. So would there be an increase of you guys trying to educate the public, trying to spread awareness of how bad these drinks are, or are you guys going to try to increase access to these substitutions for our families?
I think the important thing that we'd like to focus on is increasing access to other healthier alternatives, because one of the most important things about education is a lot of it comes from adults and parents, and we believe that over time, as this tax goes into effect, parents would begin to educate their children on the importance of choosing healthier alternatives, and thus it would make more sense for us to focus on providing more healthier alternatives and letting people's parental figures educate them on the deadliness of this sugar and this child obesity that is the highest in California and Riverside County. There's no county in California that has a higher rate of child obesity than Riverside.
And as we see this tax implementation go up, we will see that the healthier beverages do become cheaper than the unhealthy beverages, which is why so many people are currently buying unhealthy ones because they are cheaper. But once this tax goes in, it will be reversed.
Thank you. Mr. Nagpal, do you have comments on this?
Right. So I understand the physical benefits and the economic benefits, but with the drive-in movie theater, by constructing that, wouldn't that actually be encouraging the consumption of soft beverages? Because often in a movie theater, you eat popcorn and you drink some sort of soda. Isn't the construction of a drive-in movie theater sort of encouraging what we're trying to prevent here?
That is a very good point, Councilman Nagpal, but I believe that as a city that is progressing, we can sort of change the stigma behind a drive-in movie theater and maybe offer healthier alternatives at the drive-in movie theater so that people are not only going to an area in which they would usually consume these unhealthy beverages, but they'd be going to this area to participate in the same activity but choosing healthier alternatives.
So there would be healthier alternatives present at the drive-in movie theater?
Yes, there would not be an abundance of these substances that we're trying to get rid of, no.
Thank you, Councilman Naqual. Councilwoman Harmouche.
Thank you. So Megan asked you guys about the substitution of sugary beverages with healthier beverages, perhaps like water. But in addition to that, is there things like for vegetables and fruits and just organic like foods that are so expensive now in the market because they are so like a novelty? Are those items also going to be reduced in price with the coming of this revenue coming from this tax? Or is it just strictly beverages?
No, that's not implemented within our tax, but hopefully this is supposed to be like a transition to educate in a way. So if they're having a healthier drink, hopefully people realize, oh, I'm gonna have the healthier food item to go with that healthier drink. Oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was. They're gonna take the bag of carrots over the bag of chips because they're having the orange juice instead of the Coke. So.
While some valid comments and questions have been asked, I would just like to inform the council members that this is a voter-elected tax, and we are here today to decide whether or not to put this on the ballot, not whether or not the tax should be accepted already and put into fruition. It's just to see if the tax should be put on the ballot or not.
Thank you, City Manager. We really appreciate your clarification on that matter. On behalf of the City Council, I think in all fairness, it's because it costs over $100,000 to even put something on the ballot. We, as a city council, and I'm sure as a city as a whole, would like to just be certain that we're doing the right thing while putting on the city council, or while putting something on the ballot, because we really cherish the way we spend our funds as a city, and we would not want to squander $100,000. So we want to be sure that we're making the right decision. So with that, are there any other comments? Okay, so with that, I have a quick question for you guys. So have you guys you mentioned that you're working with a private company to institute the drive-in movies. Have you chosen a location appropriate in Temecula for that?
The city owns land over on Diaz, and
Okay.
we plan on building it there.
Sorry, I must have missed that. Thank you for that. And so I was just curious, what is the primary incentive for imposing the soda tax that you guys would declare? Is it to maybe diminish the use or drinkage of soft drink beverages, or to ultimately raise revenue? What is the primary incentive for imposing this tax?
I think the primary incentive for the city is it's going to bring in a lot of revenue to help us sustain a healthier environment.
I think one of the important things to understand as well is that in the short time that our city has been established, we have been very progressive in our ideas, and we've been really on the frontier of a lot of new things, like a lot of building and development. We have been kind of on the front half of, and this is just another thing that we can get a jump on, in our opinion. And we do think that it is very beneficial to kind of start this trend. And being that we are the county with the highest statistic of obesity, maybe the worst in that sense can make the biggest jump and really set the tone for the rest of the state.
Thank you, Mr. Balder. With that, I'd like to ask the city clerk if there are any speakers on this agenda item.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there are 6 speakers for item number 1. First, we will have Marianne Edwards, followed by Dr. Matt Ron.
Well, good evening. I can hardly believe I'm in Temecula to think about people raising taxes or imposing taxes. Temecula has a history, the city of Temecula has a history of imposing no taxes on its residents, and I don't know if you realize that or not. We have a few things that we do for parks. We have community facilities districts that we establish, and those funds are voted on by the people if they're after the fact, after they move in, and those help to cover the cost of our parks. How can you consider imposing a tax when we have a surplus of nearly $20 million? Anybody? Anybody? How can you consider it your business to tell people how much they should weigh or what they should eat? You cannot drive or serve the public by punishing them with taxes. I think the Boston Tea Party was a pretty good example of that, and it hasn't seemed to work too well over the years. So you cannot control people by imposing taxes on them. And what residents did you discuss this potential drive-in with? Do residents want a drive-in? Have you talked to the residents? Have you talked to businesses? If we were going to have a drive-in, if it would pencil, if it were a good business venture, don't you think Temecula would have one by now? The area of land that you're considering has a value. And in order for a business person to recoup their investment, the money they've borrowed to develop that land, they would have to put a business on that property that would provide that much in revenue. When you think about the amount of space you have and the amount of cars that would use a drive-in and the number of times per week that it might be possibly used, I can tell you right now, it's not going to pencil. They could run movies 24 hours a day for the rest of our lives and not recoup enough money to adequately cover the costs of their expense to develop that land. So does your whole scheme rest on the fact that you're going to use that revenue to better our parks, but it's all contingent upon someone wanting to invest in that property? Have you looked for potential investors? Do you have someone that's interested? Are you willing to spend $100,000 or $200,000 on putting something on the ballot, leaving all this in the air? Did you ask the residents if they want to drive in? Is it your business to control people's diets or what they eat or drink by imposing taxes? If you're going to do that, why don't you just outlaw soda altogether? That'd probably be more effective. But then have you considered the revenue Temecula would lose in sales tax? And someone asked, are we going to reduce the price of healthy foods, fruits and vegetables? How are you going to impose your will on the grocery stores and get them to reduce their prices? Are they going to lose money now on the fruits and vegetables that they've purchased? When you're talking about imposing taxes, you have to think of all the ramifications. It's like dominoes lined up. You tip one domino and other dominoes fall. So you can't control people by imposing taxes. I mean, we learned that with the Boston Tea Party. You cannot base your whole scheme on the fact that someone's going to invest in that land if it won't pencil, and they're going to go bankrupt in the process. You cannot impose your will on the grocery stores to reduce the price of healthy food. And I think you better consider, what is the job of the city council? You work for the people. You don't impose things on the people to get them to act in a certain way that you want them to act. So you work for us. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mrs. Edwards. City Clerk, do we have any other public speakers?
Yes, we have Dr. Matt Ryan to be followed by Dr. Pepper.
It's okay, it's Dr. Ron, but that's all right. Good morning, council members and Mr. Mayor, city staff. I just wanted to briefly update you on some of the issues that concern me regarding this proposed measure. First, if you didn't know, sugar production worldwide equates to roughly 1.2 billion metric tons. In comparison, some of our main crop types like corn and wheat combined are less than that. And so what you're talking about is interfering in worldwide what is a considerable commodity and quite a large part of our economy. The thing that concerns me also about this is that as you open the door to taxing sugar-based products, you're ignoring other food types that contribute to childhood obesity and other maladies. And so opening the door to sugar-based products potentially opens the door to a lot of additional taxations at the whim of our city council. Further, regulation and taxation of products like this that you deem to be important for health have implications for interstate commerce and potentially tread on issues related to constitutional protections. Also, this may be something better handled at the state or federal level, because I don't understand why residents, if they're worried about paying an additional 1.5%, wouldn't just buy these products in Murrieta, which would actually have the negative effect on our city economy. And finally, maybe this is better handled through a public outreach and education campaign in partnership with public and private institutions as well. $130,000 spent on a ballot measure could certainly be used for public outreach and education, which has been shown over and over again to be significantly more effective than taxation. So you have to think about, does the city council want to impose, a stick or a carrot in getting the public to make healthier decisions? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Dr. Ron, excuse me. City Clerk, are there any other public speakers for this item?
Yes, if we could please have Dr. Pepper step forward to be followed by Fresca Icola.
Good morning, guys. Who had Dr. Pepper today? Best drinking, atta-way. Hey, what business is it of the governments to regulate what people eat or drink? This last guy, he seemed pretty smart. I like what you were saying. This eating healthy movement's already killing my bottom line. You don't need to do anything else about it. It's the people's choice what they want to eat or drink. Imposing a new tax is going to negatively impact private business. Why would you want to do that? We already support you guys through sales tax revenues. You're cutting into our profits, our ability to donate to nonprofits, if you know what I mean. Election campaigns. What about diet sodas too? I think you're discriminating against the sugary sodas. I bet you half the sodas drunk out there are diet sodas. You can do anything about those? If you pick on me, pick on the other guys too. So I'll give you this commitment. If you guys keep this thing from moving forward, I'll match that $100,000 savings with $1 million contribution to a nonprofit of your choice. Think about that.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Roberts.
Hi, I'm Fresca.
Hi, Fresca.
I'm also a nonprofit organization. What you're proposing to put on the ballot is basically akin to a sin tax, and I think it's a very wise decision to partake in. A sin tax, as you probably already know, is a tax like on gas in Southern California. We will complain about pouring that $5 gallon of gas on our gas tank, but we'll still fill up our SUVs and Escalades. It's like a sin tax is a tax on cigarettes. People aren't going to stop smoking. People aren't going to stop drinking if you tax. And we're going to send a good message to Michelle Obama. You can't mess with our obesity children. We like them that big. I've got a child that I've sewn a wool fabric around them, and every time we go bowling, I just spray a little cleaner and throw them down the alley. It's a great way to clean it up. But I'm a little ambivalent about one thing. I appreciate the fact that we're taxing. I just want to make one clarification here with regards to the Boston Tea Party, which had nothing to do with revenue sources, because as we all remember from our great AP US history classes that we had years ago, that it was the Boston East India Company, British East India Company, excuse me, that I had a bad AP history teacher, that actually had a monopoly on the sale of this tea. That we had stockpiles. We had tons and tons of teas, and we shipped over to the colonies. So it wasn't for revenue sources, it was for control. As a matter of fact, the imposition of tax on that tea happened to be cheaper than the tea that we were buying before the imposition of tax. So it wasn't so much a revenue source as it was a power play, a very symbolic power play. But the one thing I'm a little ambivalent about is, and I don't remember this, a good friend of mine, Jeff Kingsburg, was in his 60s back in World War II. And he was telling me about what happened when Johnny came marching home. They all went to the drive-in theater, and you know what happened as a direct result of that. The biggest baby boom in the history of this country. So I'm not sure I like that idea. Plus, as a few people have already mentioned, what if that turns out to be a big white elephant? Have you ever been down to Oceanside? 4 screens, dilapidated, and all they have down there is a swap meet. I think that is a bad idea. But taxing cola, you go. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Fresca. We really appreciate it. City Clerk, are there any other public speakers for this item?
Yes, if we could please have Dr. John come forward, to be followed by Michelle B.
Dr. John, may you please come up?
Hi, my name is Dr. John, not to be confused with my colleague, Dr. Ron. I came out here today to talk about your obvious money grab that you have against sugary sodas. I noticed that up here you had some economic development analysts, people that are interested in money, but you didn't have any health officials come up and verify any of the stats that they could have just made up. But I, however, am a doctor. I used to teach at the University of Coca-Cola, and we held our own private study, and we have some stats for you. I guess we can do document camera. So here we show our group of students that we had them stop drinking soda year 1, in year 3 where they're drinking hardly anything, and we noticed that lung cancer just skyrocketed. One has to mean the other, and then we noticed some good things about soda drinking. That the increased consumption of soda led to the increased numbers of SAT scores, which is interesting. And then we found some other similarities. We noticed that the decrease of soda drinking increased the abandoned puppy ratio. So is the council against puppies? Like, why would you want to increase cancer and have all these puppies without a home? So please don't institute this tax. It's, you're going to tax our behavior. It's not going to work. Obviously, it's going to hurt your community. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. John, for your scholarly comments. We appreciate your expertise. Next speaker, please.
Hello, council members. My name is Michelle B. I'm a mother. I'm a Temeculanan, but I'm an American. I'm against this proposed soda tax in Temecula. Our Constitution says that we are individuals and free to make our own choices. With this soda tax, you are taking away this choice for every man in America. This is a clear example of government overstepping. You may want to add this tax to help combat obesity and diabetes, but as Californians can already see from state policy for healthier food options at schools, it's just not working. The children of hard-working Americans do not want to be told to eat the government-regulated food that is offered at their school. Instead, they turn to junk food that other kids smuggle and sell on their school campus. They eat worse than if the school offered food that just tasted good. It is too much to ask for kids to like the food that they eat without overtaxing and government regulation. What is next to be taxed? Or overtaxed, I guess we should say. My coffee? Okay, Potato chips? No. Chocolate? A lot of angry women. Fried chicken? Oh no. I hear some people agreeing with me. This sounds to me like a socialist policy hidden in a tax bill. Should we add this to our list of sin taxes? Sins. Yes. Do we really need to slap additional taxes on items the government wishes to discourage? Are tanning beds next to be overtaxed because they might cause skin cancer? Smoking because of a so-called link to lung cancer? And alcohol because too much might cause liver cancer. But guess what? Americans are still tanning, they're still drinking, and they're still smoking because it is their freedom of choice as Americans. Americans are already taxed enough, and this tax will not solve the problem of obesity in our youth. Americans have the right to decide what is okay for their children to consume. This bill is trying to take away that right. We as Americans cannot let that happen and must vote against this being put on any kind of ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. B, for your comments. Next speaker, please.
If we could have Abby Smith come forward as the final speaker.
Good morning, Council. I'm a mother here in the city of Temecula, and I am wondering where all of these speakers were during the 8 public workshops that staff in the city of Temecula so generously provided over the last 8 months. We did have a few speakers, and during these workshops, we determined that this slight tax is consistent with the City of Temecula's Quality of Life Master Plan core value of a healthy and livable city. And it also provides the superior quality of park and recreational facilities and programs, as well as a new initiative for the children and our youth and our future generations to have a drive-in movie theater with trails and connecting to our existing trails that are within the city. And the entire conference center is filled with the 300 people who attended these these public workshops in support of this tax. And my feeling is Dr. Pepper and his lobbyists are seating some people here for opposing the tax. But your constituents at the City of Temecula are good with this tax, as staff has brought forward all of their consultant works and They've worked very hard with the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce, and all of their businesses here in town are good with this tax as well, because there's a win-win situation where they will have, not only will our children be geared towards drinking healthier drinks, there's a return on investment for our businesses with this, with a healthier drink alternative, and then we have a supplemental stream to continue to maintain, not just maintain, but elevate and enhance for future generations. And we have 300 people that I represent that are in the conference center right now who are your constituents.
Mr. Mayor, we have one more speaker.
All right, thank you, City Clerk.
If we could have Christine D. come forward as the final speaker.
Hi. Sorry I was late. I was gathering my army out in the parking structure. I'm Christine D. I am the president of MASS, Mothers Against Sugar. And we are very supportive of this proposed ballot. I am, as I said, the president of this association. It's a very strong association. All the sports leagues in the city, all the parents of these leagues, all the cheerleaders, all the tennis players, all the swimmers, all the football players, all the soccer players are all part of this MASS association, and we want to sustain our park systems, and we want to build them up, and we also want to limit our kids drinking soda. So I have thousands of people in the parking structure. We are supportive of this, and what we're asking for is not for the city council to support the ballot, but really put the ballot to the voters and let us decide whether or not we want this tax. This is a very small room when you compare us to we're a city of 106,000 people, and this is a very small minority of people opposing this tax. We'll take it, let everyone have the opportunity to vote. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mrs. D. I believe that concludes our speakers. So, would any one of the council members like to make a motion? Oh, my fault. Before we make a motion to approve or deny the recommendation, we will move to city council discussion. Councilwoman Namgoon, could you begin, please?
Yes. So with the idea of taking the revenue from the tax and putting it towards a drive-in theater, I really just don't see how our ultimate goal is to prevent obesity and reverse this issue. But I just don't see how a movie theater would promote this. Yes, there is a trail, but one of the biggest problems with obesity is that it's prevalent in children. And children aren't going to go to a drive-in theater that often. It's mostly going to be for teenagers who have their license, who have a car. But why can't we just take this money that if we do implement this tax, and put it towards something that would be more effective, maybe perhaps putting it into school districts to promote more physical education, more sports teams, more just anything that would promote activity rather than maybe just one movie theater.
Thank you, Ms. Namgoon. Mr. Negpaul?
Well, yes, the first thing I'd like to suggest is that we get someone to back up the facts drawn by Dr. Chan, just so we have some clarification that, abandoned puppies are really correlated with soda consumption. The next thing is that I do believe that while we're addressing the point that we're taking away the freedom of choice, we are simply putting it on the ballot. And I do believe that this is a sin tax in which people may believe that their prices are being raised, but ultimately there will be still the consumption of soda and of these soft drinks as well. So that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Negpaul. Ms. Harmouche?
I want to concur with Rosa on her point of perhaps taking that money and using it towards programs that will actually help younger kids get more active. But in addition to that, when we look down at the statistics, I really think that a good alternative to promoting healthy living is to reduce the price of healthy foods. Healthy foods are so expensive in America, like on a national level, and cheap foods are so easily accessible, cheap, unhealthy foods. And so when you look at the socioeconomic of like the people who are struggling with obesity, is those people who have a low socioeconomic background, who are of like minorities. And so perhaps if we lower those prices, and even with those revenues, we can promote healthy living just by the foods and that we offer, and perhaps make more accessible. So I concur with Rosa's point on that. I don't know how well a drive-in movie theater would do so well, but parks in general, yes, but maybe not a movie theater.
Thank you, Councilwoman Harmouche. Councilwoman Crane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To bring economic terms to what Councilwoman Harmouche is saying is there are two ways to encourage or discourage a behavior as a government using fiscal policy, and that is to create a tax or to create a subsidy. And I do believe that while this tax will help discourage the behavior of drinking soda, it is important to look at the subsidizing side of things and look at trying to make those healthy foods cheaper, or trying to make it more healthier and exercising options more accessible, like subsidizing gym memberships to increase exercising. So basically my idea is that while this is a step forward to fight obesity, I don't know if it is the correct step.
Thank you, Councilwoman Crane. If it pleases the council, I'd like to make my own comments now on the issue. So first off, I think there is a fundamental question that we are faced with today regarding this issue. And that question would be, do we as a city council and city government have the right to interfere intimately in the way that imposing a soda or a tax on sodas would be? Sodas are things that are that are a part of people's personal lives. And do we as a city council really have the right to intervene in people's personal lives and impose a tax on them and interfere with the flow of people's lives? I think that's an important question that we must consider when considering this item. And then finally, I'd like to allude back to my candidacy speech, in which I made it clear, unequivocally clear, that my top priority as mayor would be to vote and to run as mayor and serve as mayor on behalf of the citizens of Temecula and be their voice and make sure every Temeculanan has a voice in the way we run this government. And with that said, what I noticed in the speakers from the citizens of Temecula was that there was an overwhelming dissatisfaction with the possible imposition of a soda tax. And with that overwhelming opposition to the soda tax, it directly contradicts what I promised to the people and what was one of the factors that got me in here. So I believe I have a duty to the citizens of Temecula to speak and vote on their behalf. Thank you. So, would any one of the council members like to make a motion on this item?
I would like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion, or I move to deny this recommendation.
Do I have a second motion?
Oh, I second that motion.
Thank you. We will now move to a vote. City Clerk? I believe the votes have been cast. We'll just bear with us as we wait for the results. So the motion passes with a 3-2 majority.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, sir, where's that $1 million?
Quiet down in the audience, please. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. One more thing before we move on to the next item. I apologize. I believe I didn't clarify that in the public comment section, there is a total of 30 minutes provided so members of the public may address the council on items that appear with the consent calendar or ones that are not listed on the agenda. When discussing the items, we will allot 30 minutes and 3 minutes per person. I'll finish reading the instructions. So that is, speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. If you desire to speak on the council on an item which is listed on the consent calendar or a matter not listed in the agenda, a pink request to speak form should be filled out and filed with the city clerk. When you are called to speak, please come forward and state your name for the record. Again, I apologize for that lack of clarification on that, but for now on, we will be staying strict to, or as strict as possible to let your voice be heard, of course, to the limit of 3 minutes for each public speaker. So, with that, I believe we move on to item 2, which reads, let's see, sorry, this thing isn't registering. All right, so item 2 reads, consider application to locate a hookah lounge in Old Town Temecula. May we have a staff report on this, please?
Hello? There we go. I would like to offer a staff report on this. After the citizens present their plan to do so, plan for asking for a permit in Old Town Temecula.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. The project before you is a request for a conditional use permit to establish a hookah lounge at 321 Old Town Front Street in the Old Town area. The proposed hookah lounge will be located on the first floor across from the Gambling Cowboy. The applicant's statement of operations include that they will employ 10 employees. They have an occupancy of 50 people. Their proposed business hours are 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. However, after analyzing these statements, we have issued restrictions on the applicant's requests, such as changing their hours of operation from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. Sundays through Thursdays, and 3 p.m. to midnight Friday nights and Saturday nights. After staff analyzed this request with city requirements and state requirements in mind, we've concluded that this hookah lounge would be allowed use subject to conditions.
Now, the conditions for the permit would be that members must be 18 years or older. The employees must undertake a training course and obtain a certificate on verifying the legitimacy of driver's licenses and/or IDs every 6 months. The employees must take a drug and gang relations training course. The hours of operation from Sunday through Thursday are 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. and Friday through Saturday, 3 p.m. to 12 a.m. Ventilation systems are to be implemented in the ceiling of the hookah lounge. The front doors are to remain closed during the hours of operation. There are to be no alcoholic beverages served. Only prepackaged food is to be served to customers. The establishment is to take proper security measures, such as installing cameras. The back door of the establishment must be locked from the outside. The windows facing the public crosswalks, pavements, and other businesses must be tinted. In accordance with the small business exception from the Labor Code, the establishment must have no more than 5 employees. Permittee must comply with all applicable state laws, including all Labor Code requirements, and any alterations to the statement of operations, handling of business, or to the hookah lounge itself must be approved with the City Planning Department.
Thank you. Does that conclude the staff report?
Yes.
Thank you very much, staff. With that,
Mr. Mayor, we also have the police department and fire department that would like to elaborate on some conditions for this hookah lounge.
my apologies. I invite the police department to come share their staff report.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Samuel Lopez, and I'm the police chief. Our staff report has found that our agency had some concerns and some propositions for the hookah lounge. We propose that the windows of the establishment must be opaque because the public cannot view the tobacco products and paraphernalia in accordance with Municipal Code 524-040. In order to obtain a tobacco retailer license, a proprietor shall keep all tobacco products and tobacco paraphernalia from public view and shall not display any advertisement relating to tobacco products or tobacco paraphernalia that promotes the sale or distribution of such products from the tobacco retailer's location. And in our studies, we have also found that there are actually 2 existing hookah lounges in Temecula. Before that, we did not know there were 2 because there was no major reported incidents from the hookah lounge. And I would also like to call up my police lieutenant, Nick Reditsas, to expand on some points.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm going to further Police Chief Samuel Lopez by saying that we also approve to enforce this by doing undercover operations, POP operations, which is problem operating policing. And in this, we will be checking for certain permits, licenses, and records from the applicant and place the hookah lounge. And also, we will work with the applicant to enforce the restrictions and certifications that we tend to enforce.
Thank you very much for those comments, staff. Does that conclude? Or is there further more comments?
That concludes our report.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, we also have the fire department that would like to elaborate on this as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for that earlier. That was my bad. Good morning, members of the City Council. My name is Megan Wilkinson, and I am the fire chief for the City of Temecula. One of the issues on the agenda being mentioned right now is obviously whether or not the city should approve an application to locate a hookah bar here in Old Town Temecula. Our recommendation is that the City Council approve the application, and this is my report detailing the fire department's reasoning behind this decision. Brief background is that hookah lounges have increased in popularity within the past few decades, particularly with young adults. In most hookah lounges, patrons gather to smoke a type of flavored tobacco known as shisha through a shared hookah pipe. One of the main concerns that the Fire Prevention Bureau has is over the heating and disposal of coals used for hookah pipes. Once coals are ready to be disposed of, they must be placed in a sealed, non-combustible container specifically for them. The container must be kept away from any combustible materials and shall be given a cooling period of 24 hours before being discarded. Proper disposal of coals is critical in preventing possible fires and burns. Another issue is, in order to preserve the employee's health, the fire department requires that a mechanical exhaust hood ventilation system is installed and left on whenever coals are heated. Another issue regarding safety deals with the maximum occupancy of the lounge. If the maximum occupancy exceeds 50 people, business is required to include a second exit, illuminated exit signs, panic hardware, and flame-resistant decorative materials. Certificates indicating that all of the requirements have been met must state all flame-resistant materials within the building and must be kept at the place of business at all times. All of these procedures are an ordinance of the California Fire and Building Code. Despite these concerns with safety, the Temecula Fire Department used the establishment of a hookah lounge in Old Town as beneficial to the community. Hookah lounges, as previously mentioned, have become increasingly popular with young adults and college-age students. It has become a popular venue for social gatherings and serves as an alternative to bars where an excessive amount of drinking can lead to fatal accidents caused by drunk driving. 2 hookah lounges currently do exist in Temecula. Both businesses have met and maintained the requirements and procedures enforced by the fire department. No issues related to fire safety or crime have arisen during either company's time in Temecula. Location of a hookah lounge in Old Town gives it the extra security being surrounded by the fire hydrants and by other businesses that have sprinkler systems. Operating hours begin at 5 and extend late into the evening, so the possibility of legal age high school students ditching school to possibly smoke in a hookah lounge are non-existent. And as I mentioned, the legal age for smoking hookah is 18, so it is not accessible to underage teens. 2 hookah lounges already in Temecula. It is clear that this type of business has met the safety requirements set in place by the state of California to continue to maintain these standards. Again, the only major concerns that we have are regarding the hot coals and that they are disposed of properly, and with proper ventilation systems as well. Aside from this, the fire department has no justifiable reason to disallow a hookah lounge in Old Town, and that is why we recommend that the City Council approve the application to allow a hookah lounge here in Old Town.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wilkinson. This opens up questions from the City Council towards the staff. Again, those are questions. Councilwoman Namgoon, please begin.
Just a quick question. It says here that this hookah lounge would be a members-only club. So what would the requirements be to become a member?
Primarily 18 years or older so that we can enforce that current smoking age requirement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Namgoon. Now, Councilman Nagpal, please proceed.
Yes, you did. You did state that you would have windows that were facing public crosswalks and roadways, is that right?
Yes, that they would have to be tinted.
Right, but if these windows were to be opened, wouldn't that allow some of the smoke, some of the hookah to come out into the public's, I guess, breathing area?
No, because the windows would be mainly glass and it can't be. And we have a ventilation system that we also have.
I understand, never mind. You're fine.
Thank you, Mr. Nagpal. Mrs. Crane.
I have a few questions about this proposed hookah lounge. For one, you said that there are ventilation fans, and in your report you said a lot about the California state standards, but in Temecula there's a smoking ordinance where there cannot be any smoking 20 feet of another business entrance, and due to the close proximity of all the businesses in Old Town, I feel like that's almost virtually impossible to isolate the business to the point where it won't affect the businesses around it, and I was wondering your comments on that.
That's a very good point. With that ventilation system that we have inside, it would, what the applicant proposes, that it would, the smoke inside would be filtrated and then exhausted out toward the ceiling and then hence outside, so it would not affect the other businesses that are around or surrounding this hookah lounge.
Thank you very much for your questions, Mrs. Crane. With that, I believe that concludes questions from my fellow council members. And now I would like to ask a few questions of my own. So, particulars with the shisha offered at your guys' proposed hookah lounge, will there be herbal-based shisha available as well as tobacco? I'm just curious.
Will be only herbal.
Only
shisha.
herbal. Okay. Thank you. And what about nicotine? What is the content of nicotine in your guys' hookah product? Because I know that is a major concern among people who are anti-cigarette smokers, the addiction that it can entail. So as far as nicotine, how does your hookah product go for that?
In regards to your question, we do not, the proposed herbal drug that will be used for the hookahs is tobacco, therefore these do not contain nicotine.
Okay. Thank you. And let's see if I have any other questions. So in the past, because as already mentioned, we already have 2 hookah lounges located in Temecula. In the past, they haven't come to the city council for approval. So I'm just curious, why now?
I believe that every single business that wants to come here, we should have permission from the city council, because a lot of the people here in Temecula might see this as something that ruins that family atmosphere that we've created, and especially in particular a hookah lounge, and therefore we require that this applicant comes through our department so that we can ensure that this will be all right with the rest of the community.
Thank you. And one more thing. Do you guys consent to include the health recommendations provided by the fire chief and police chief, to include that in your recommendation and into your request to impose or establish a hookah lounge?
Yes, of course. We can add that to some of the conditions that we have currently right now.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Well, I'll let Councilwoman Crane ask a question for you guys right now.
Thank you. I just had a follow-up question. I was wondering, since there are 2 other businesses that are very similar, if not the exact same, are there any legal issues due to the close proximity of these 3 locations in such a small town?
As of now, I believe there wouldn't be any legal issues arising from the hookah lounge around these other businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Crane. I also have one more recommendation, I guess you could say. So would you guys consider marketing, or not necessarily marketing, but having a health and safety notice, and basically a health and safety warning on your guys' facility to warn of the health effects of hookah? Because I know that, I know that we would all agree that we think the best democracy and the best democracy is a informed electorate, and we would like to inform the citizens of the health costs and really give them a holistic picture of what they're really involving themselves with when they get to hookah. So some research I've just done on my own was the similarities between hookah and cigarette smoking. So let's see. These are just some statements made from the CDC, or Center for Disease Control. So in comparison to cigarette smoking, it says, while many hookah smokers may think this practice is less harmful than smoking cigarettes, hookah smoking has many of the same health risks as cigarette smoking. And another one is, because of the way a hookah is used, smokers may absorb more of the toxic substances also found in cigarette smoke than smokers do. And lastly, hookah smokers may be at risk for some of the same diseases as cigarette smokers. These include oral cancer, lung cancer, stomach cancer, cancer of the esophagus, reduced lung function, and decreased fertility. And in addition to the CDC report, there is a report from George Washington University that basically comes to the same conclusion, that cigarettes versus hookah, which is safer? Hookah is not safer than cigarettes. And additionally, this is further verified by a magazine written by the critically acclaimed Forbes magazine. So through 3 credible sources, that have all come to a similar conclusion, that cigarettes and hookah are both very dangerous to personal health and very similar in effects. And there are already requirements for cigarette companies to post the health risks of smoking cigarettes on their cartons or advertisements or whatever it may be. Would you guys consider doing that as well with your hookah lounge?
Yes, that is an excellent point, Mr. Mayor. Of course, we can add that as a condition for this hookah lounge to place a warning label of health risks for the consumers. In regards to the question of being harmful compared to cigarettes, there's also an option that we could have them do a tobacco-free drug, which would eliminate all those negative effects that are associated with cigarettes.
All right, thank you very much. That will conclude the staff report, and we will move on and proceed to public comments for item 2. City Clerk, may you summon our first speaker, please?
Yes, if we could have Dr. Matt Ron come forward, followed by Ida T. Party.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak. I'm a little confused because on the one hand you want to regulate and tax sugar and harmful products, but at the other you're here voting or endorsing the concept of hookah lounge, which you've already said is a health concern. Beyond that, other things I think you should be concerned about, either supporting or opposing the proposal, is that the city council is treading in a very interesting area. I realize the proposal as put forward was to allow the council to have some input and the city to have some input on citing these, but it concerns me that the prior 2 businesses were never received that type of oversight. And the other is, be careful, and it also concerns me a little bit that we don't have a city attorney sitting with us here today. Because the other concern is whether you support or oppose installation like this, it has not just implications for businesses in the city, but also cultural and discriminatory implications as well. And I haven't heard anybody discuss those today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. How are you guys? I don't know if you're aware, but hookah lounges have an origin in the Middle East. The owners of these lounges tend to be people of Middle Eastern descent. And although they may claim to be merely businesses offering a place to socially gather and partake of this tobacco, you're not fooling me. These lounges are fronts to Middle East terrorist organizations, namely ISIS. I'm sure you guys have heard of ISIS. Okay. ISIS, my friends in Temecula, has infiltrated us. Wake up. These hookah lounges are recruitment lounges. They're recruitment facilities that attract, as you guys said, young adults. These young adults are very influenced by this life of terror in the Middle East. And years ago, by the way, you all approved a building of a mosque in Temecula. Now we may approve hookah lounges. What's next? You guys are going to take your oath of office on a Quran? Please don't allow these hookah lounges in Temecula unless you want to breed young terrorists. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. City Clerk, does that conclude our public speakers, or are there any more?
We have more.
Okay.
If we could please have Smoka D. Dayaway come, followed by Randy J.
Good afternoon. I'm from the Middle East, and I find those comments very offensive, quite frankly. I still love you. We're running extremely long, so I'm going to do my part and be very, very quick. How much time do we have left? And what you give me, 30 minutes? He said yes.
27.
we got 2 hookahs in town, and we also have 2 cigar places that I attend on a regular basis and light up on a regular basis. So all I will leave you with is, let's collectively approve this so we can put it in all of our pipes and smoke it. Hookah!
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Dayaway. Next speaker, proceed, please.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, my name is Randy J., and I am the applicant for this hookah lounge, Hookah for You. Contrary to popular belief, I am not infiltrating terrorist cells. I am not a breeding ground for ISIS. But what I am is a business owner in this city. Now, this application went to the Planning Commission, and they approved it unanimously. So let me remind the City Council that unless there are actual technical deficiencies in this application, this City Council, and I have met all my criteria with respect to the conditions outlined by the Chief of Police and the conditions outlined by Community Development, that this City Council is obligated to support my application for my business. You are not the moral police regulating smoking, regulating hookahs. You are the legislative body deciding whether or not a business is lawfully locating into this city. So unless I have violated any of the conditions under the Planning Commission, or I have violated any of the other conditions set forth by the city in its application process, you are, like the Planning Commission, obligated to go ahead and approve this application, and if not, you may see some litigation.
Thank you very much for your lawful comments and general reminders. We appreciate it. Thank you. Next speaker, please. Or does that conclude?
We have no more speakers.
Okay. With that, I will open the forum for discussion among the City Council. We'll begin with Councilwoman Crane.
I have a lot of reasons why I'm for and why I'm against this hookah lounge, and most of the reasons why I am against is because of the health regulations that I believe should be met in this city that does support and encourage families. And I think it's very important that we do not discriminate against other cultures, and this is a tradition in the Middle East, and they'd like to bring it to Temecula, and I think that's very good, and it encourages the education of different cultures. But I would want to see some conditions met if I was to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Mr. Nagpal?
Right, so I have to agree with Ms. Crane. There are some health regulations that need to be met. But I do believe that by only providing for herbal hookah, and for, I mean, they claim that they had no nicotine, so I do believe that they have met at least some of the health regulations. With regards to the threat of breeding terrorism in hookah lounges, I do recall that the police chief did say he would be hosting his own undercover operations in the hookah lounge. So if it really is that big of a deal, then I'm sure we can trust the police. That is all. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Nagpal. Councilwoman Nangoon?
So I would like to address what a public speaker spoke about, how we were just talking about the taxation of soda drinks in order to promote a more healthier lifestyle. And as you pointed out, Mr. Mayor, there are a lot of health implications with hookah. There are a lot of similarities with cigarettes, and in the long term, it may even turn out to cause maybe more damage or more cancer, similar to cigarettes. Initially, when cigarettes were introduced, we didn't know that they were as bad as they were until we do now. And so I think it's almost contradictory for us to approve this when we are trying to promote healthy habits. But at the same time, I do not think that by denying it, we are taking away the opportunity from the people to actually have a voice.
Thank you, Councilwoman Namgoon. Councilwoman Harmouche?
Yes, thank you. I don't see anything inherently wrong about opening this hookah lounge in Old Town Temecula. I think that staff did an excellent job presenting their facts, and now that all the requirements are met, lawfully there's really nothing to hold back on. Although there are some health concerns, there are health concerns with drinking too much alcohol and smoking too much cigarettes, but again, it's something that's going to be contained in that area with the membership, of course, so I think that is good to go, and I don't think that not opening the hookah lounge or allowing it because of racism for the Middle Eastern culture or fear of any type of terrorist infiltration is just not a legitimate reason to hold back on this business. So that's just my take.
Thank you, Councilwoman Harmouche. Councilman Nagpal?
Yes, I'd just like to elaborate a little bit on what Ms. Harmouche was saying. To be honest, I frankly don't see any difference between a hookah lounge and another bar. They both, while they may sell items that may personally harm oneself, it is the consumer's choice. They both have regulations as to who can enter, and ultimately, I do find that there are a lot of parallels that can be drawn between the two. We've seen that there are 2 different hookah lounges that have already been established in Temecula, and both of these have met the requirements set forth for them, and we haven't really seen that much harm come from either of these. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Nagpal. So to conclude the City Council's comments, I think there were some great things said, especially how Mrs. Councilwoman Harmouche mentioned that we really don't have any business to discriminate based on race or maybe ethnic suspicions at all. So, and it really, as lawfully and justly as a city council, it is not our business to discriminate on that. We cannot infringe the right of someone to establish a settlement, whatever it may be, or a establishment of a hookah lounge in this case, based on our own suspicions and something that isn't a clear and present danger to the well-being of our society. So, and with the agreement to include the health regulations, because personally I feel part of me doesn't want to accept the establishment of the hookah lounge because I'm personally affected, not me, but my grandfather, whom I was very close to, passed away due to lung cancer. But we cannot take the right away from someone to smoke because we stand for the freedom of choice in this country. But I believe that because we are a more educated society than we were in the 50s and 60s when people believed that cigarette smoking was indeed healthy. We are a lot more educated now, and I believe it is absolutely necessary that we educate the citizens on what they're getting themselves into as far as hookah. So with that, would anyone like to make a motion?
I would like to move that we approve the application of the hookah lounge under the conditions that the company follows the recommendation of the police chief and fire chief. That includes complying with any investigations that they deem necessary. Also, that they post all of the health effects in their window, as our mayor suggested, and that the surrounding businesses within a quarter-mile radius or whatever we feel is affected by it agrees to support the hookah lounge and allow it to be a part of their community of businesses.
Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'd like to second the motion.
We will now make a vote. The final results are pending. Excuse me. Ms. Namgoon?
I voted.
Okay. City Clerk, we seem to have a technical problem. It says one member is off the dais.
The motion passed.
I voted yes.
Okay.
FYI.
We will take a roll call then for the vote. With Ms. Councilwoman Namgoon's yes, the motion passes unanimously. That brings us to the next item on our agenda, which reads, receive report regarding effort to curtail loitering and vandalism in city parks and recreation facilities. I now invite the staff report, or the staff to give the report on this issue, or this item, rather.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, staff, and citizens. I'm Hannah Wall, Director of Community Services, and presenting with me is Assistant Director of Community Services, Kelly Sharpless. The item you have before you tonight is a recommendation to adopt anti-loitering devices in addition to increased park patrols to mitigate vandalism and crime at city facilities. The city currently experiences high levels of loitering at several facilities. Loiterers comprise several demographic groups, including students, transients, and persons intent on committing crimes including defacing property, public indecency, public intoxication, fighting, selling drugs, and soliciting. Police resources are often focused on responding to more urgent situations, and city staff is not adequately resourced to resolve all loitering issues. As a specific example, the department has addressed a loitering problem at Sam Hicks Monument Park of transients who have caused disturbances with patrons entering and exiting the museum. Additionally, there have been disturbances around the chapel, which affects the members of the public who are trying to utilize the space for weddings. There are reported incidents of vandalism and crime specifically at the Ronald Reagan Sports Park and the Community Recreational Center. The Community Service Department reports that there have been transients and young adults who are disrupting the teen center at the CRC and trespassing on the property. After hours, suspicious activity by young adults has been observed at the sports park, typically after park closure. Witnesses has deemed it as drug-affiliated activity. So after extensive research involving both the Information Technology and Public Works departments, it is recommended to approve of a pilot program to evaluate the effectiveness of these devices in curtailing loitering. We would like to use the Ronald Reagan Park, the Community Recreational Center, as well as the Sam Hicks Monument Park as target locations for this program. I would now like to direct your attention at the Director of Public Works, who's going to give you a demonstration of what these devices will sound like.
If you can hear the sound, please raise your hand. And now, this is what the mosquitoes will sound like at our parks. Thank you.
As such, it's recommended to approve the purchase of 5 sonic deterrent devices at the cost of $1,400 apiece at key city locations, which I've mentioned before. This includes motion sensors so that devices are not always on or active. Additionally, the department requests approval of the increase in park ranger presence in the highly disturbed areas at no additional cost. The total fiscal cost will be $7,000 for 5 devices, which includes installation, maintenance cost, and this is a relatively modest initial investment, which will provide a safe, effective, and long-term solution to the city's ongoing loitering problem. This concludes our staff report, and we are available to answer any questions you may have at this time. In addition, we have representatives from IT and Public Works to address any other issues that may arise.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Are there any other additional staff reports for this item? No? Okay. Does the council have any questions for staff? We'll begin with Councilwoman Namgoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So one of the implications that we have to consider is what is going to be considered as loitering. Just standing and being there after hours. What if some parks don't even have hours? They're supposed to be open to the public at all times. So what is your idea of loitering?
I would like to remind you our policy that parks do close at 10:30 p.m. So anyone who is on the premise at that time is breaking the law. Loitering, though, that my department has defined that as something that would be causing a nuisance, someone who is suspected of criminal activity or anything involving vandalism.
would you define as nuisance?
Anyone who is negatively affecting the patrons who are trying to enjoy the public services that we have for them.
And who is the determinant of that?
Well, we have park rangers who are equipped to assess situations and take care of them as appropriate. One of the main problems we have had is with transients, and obviously we all know it is legal for them to be at certain locations at certain times, but when they become bothering to certain patrons and certain events that are going on, we must ask our park rangers to help assist them in leaving the premises. Thank you. Are there any other questions from the City Council that they would like to address Ms. Wall? Let's go to Councilwoman Crane.
I would just like to ask how the cost of this device, the installation and the upkeeping of it, compares to the cost of a security officer or a park ranger, like you said, which you mentioned would handle those situations. But now, under my implications, now that the device is there, we would no longer need this park ranger, and this would take care of that job. So I was just wondering how the costs compare, and including in the cost of the device is the loss of a job for our park rangers.
As stated in the staff report, we stated that we're going to have the park rangers keep all of their hours, and they have shifts based on the north and south areas of parks that we have, which is divided by Paba Road. So there would be no change in park ranger hours, and we would encourage them to use these areas of mass disturbance as focal points or home bases, if you will, so that they can direct their routes back to these park places that we've been having these disturbances. So there will be no change whatsoever in park ranger jobs. But instead of having a police officer or a guard roam the parks at nighttime, because these devices will only be implicated, as stated in the staff report, from the hours of 10:30 to 6:30 in the morning, which are after hours, so we will not have to pay someone to be out there at nighttime. We had an alternate proposal to use cameras or audio devices, which would cost a lot more, and so we would like to introduce this pilot system to try out this cheaper alternative of technology that will reduce costs, not having a person to maintenance it and a person to monitor it, but we can utilize this technology to monitor on a cheaper scale. I believe that concludes our questions for staff. Thank you very much, Ms. Wall, for your scholarly knowledge of the subject. With that, we will proceed, or round of applause for staff. Okay. No worries. City Clerk, are there any speeches to address this agenda item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have two. If we could please have Father of the Year come forward, to be followed by Ann T. Teen.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't turn in a speaker request, but do you mind if I speak? I was just wondering, I just noticed that you asked for a round of applause for staff, and I thought they'd get paid. But if they'll work for applause, we could save some money. I'm just saying. Okay.
I appreciate your concern, but another round of applause. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll move on to our next speaker.
Hello. Okay. I live in Old Town, just about a block from one of the parks that you're proposing to install this mosquito or anti-loitering devices. I work two jobs. I commute to and from work, so I get home pretty late, and I have a 3-year-old daughter. And the only time we get to spend with each other is at the park when I get home. I'm a lawful citizen. I'm not there tagging the park. I'm not there destroying property. I'm just there playing with my daughter. Why all of a sudden am I labeled a criminal because I want to go to this park? My daughter, she's special needs, and these high-pitched noises really bother her. And I was wondering why the council would like to subject that kind of pain onto like little children. And please just think about our kids. think about people who are not being, destructive and just want to utilize the parks that we pay our taxes for. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. I love this idea. Love it. I don't know if you guys know, but the science is out about teenagers and their brain development. Yes? Have you guys heard? Your brains are not fully developed. This frontal lobe right here, you guys cannot fully critically think through decisions. Therefore, you cannot make right decisions. This device, I like the idea, but I don't think the city's going far enough here. Here's what I propose. I propose that every public school child entering 6th grade, so get them before they become these teenagers, which are really like an alien force if you really think about it, they get implanted with this microchip. So similar to like the mosquito, right? But put it in each child, and then it'll be removed upon graduation, right? As soon as you walk across the stage, they'll just take the chip out. But it's really the same idea. So how it would work is once you had a congregation outside of school hours, of course, of more than 5 teenagers at any point, and obviously not in their private residences, that the high-pitched noise would, it would basically be in their brain, right? So they would just disperse. And that essentially would take care of our vandalism, it would take care of our loitering, it would take care of pretty much almost every problem that plagues this city with teenagers.
With all due respect, Speaker, in the interest of time, could you please summarize your comments?
I love the idea. Just go a little further. The chips. Think about the chips.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
We have no further speakers.
Perfect.
I
mean, dang it. Okay. I will open now the forum to council discussion on item 3. We will start with Councilman Nagpal.
So addressing the issue of planting the chips, and if we were to gather teenagers, at least 5 in one congregation, they would disperse. Unfortunately, if we enforce that, I don't think we'd be able to have a city council meeting right now. Just wanted to throw that out there. So on that regard, I would suggest we don't. I've actually heard of a few instances in which this sound has actually permanently damaged the eardrums of young children. I just want to make that clear that there is a possibility that the sound could potentially damage our children as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councilman Nagpal. And with that, we will proceed to Councilwoman Namgoon.
I believe this mosquito alarm would really just be a slap on the wrist. It would really only help harmless loitering. As Father of the Year was talking about, what he was doing would be considered loitering since he would be there after hours, but was he really causing any harm? No. And in the end, it's actually hurting him more when he is innocent. His daughter, it shows in research that this sound can actually be health-wise dangerous to younger children. And I think if we are trying to stop vandalism or punish illegal activities, a annoying sound in your ear is not going to be enough, and if anything, it is ineffective.
Thank you, Councilwoman Namgoon. Councilwoman Crane.
Thank you. I wanted to first of all say that I believe that Temecula is a very safe city, and we owe that to our police chief and police lieutenant, as well as our fire department. And I think that our park rangers and our security officers do a very good job of protecting our parks. And I feel as if this device is almost unneeded if there will still be officers there after hours. I also wanted to talk about the Father of the Year situation. I noticed he did not say that he could hear that high-pitched noise that some of us up here heard. And that's very dangerous because if he was to take his child, it would very much hurt her, but he would not notice, and that would go unnoticed. The good thing is that he was here to learn about this, but if there was a father or a mother who brought their child and didn't know that this device was installed, they would be at risk of causing great pain to their child's hearing without even knowing it. And I think that is a very dangerous thing that we need to look out for. Also, the health effects do lead to tinnitus, and I think that's that's something we should protect our citizens from as city council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Crane. Councilwoman Harmouche.
Yeah, just briefly, I wanted to state that I think that this proposal is highly discriminatory against teenagers because it goes under the assumption that teenagers are always the one doing criminal acts like vandalism or destruction of property. So I don't think that this really I think it targets a minority, which for the most part, a kid could just be there, just not really doing anything, and that targets him nonetheless. So I don't think that this will be a good idea.
Thank you, Councilwoman Harmouche. And some final comments. I'll give my quick 2 cents on this. I think some really good points were made about the health effects of what it can do to impair the hearing development of young children. And especially as one of our speakers noted out, that some people, for whatever reason, the only time they have with their children is after hours. Maybe the time would be designated to have the mosquito device working. So with that, I feel that this is an unnecessary measure, and that there are other means to solve the problem of teen loitering in parks and other facilities. So with that, could we have a motion from the City Council?
I'd like to make a motion to deny the resolution of approving of the purchase and installation of these anti-loitering devices.
Thank you, Mr. Nagpal. Could I have a second motion?
I'd like to second that motion.
The City Council will now vote. Okay, the results of the vote are pending. Bear with us, please. Okay. The motion passes unanimously.
To deny.
To deny the staff recommendation, of course. Sorry for that lack of clarification, but the motion passes unanimously to deny the implementation of mosquito devices in parks and other facilities in the community. Thank you.
Round of applause.
And with that, we will move to departmental reports. The Public Works Monthly Report, I believe, is next on the agenda. If we could get that.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, staff, and citizens. I'm Kinsey McElhaney, the Director of Public Works, and presenting with me will be my Assistant Director of Public Works, Rihanna Youngken, and City Engineer, John Buckley. We recommend that the City Council receive and file the Department of Public Works report on the Happy Valley Parkway Interstate 15 interchange, as well as the proposed senior living facility named New Beginnings adjacent to the interchange. We will be constructing the Happy Valley interchange, which will consist of 2 off-ramps, 2 on-ramps, a complete overpass across the Interstate 15 main road, medians, and sidewalks so that the Temecula Valley will be accessible from the Interstate 15 freeway. In addition to the freeway construction, Matthews and Associates will be developing a construction of a senior congregate care facility adjacent to the Happy Valley interchange. The developer agreed to donate the needed land for the interchange and construct the traffic signal adjacent to the facility, saving the Happy Valley interchange project $5 million. Thank you. And now to the engineer.
So just to provide a quick background, as most of us know, the I-15 freeway experiences a great deal of traffic. most hours of the day, especially during peak hours of approximately 4 to 6 p.m. on weekdays. And the proposed overpass is speculated to reduce traffic by over 45%. And the project and environmental document were approved by the California Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration in record time of about 3 years. And we have also completed the design without any problems. We were about ready to go out to bid, but we ran into an environmental problem. Biologists examined the vegetation along the highway where the overpass was to be constructed, and they found that a rare species of songbird was nesting there, which delayed the project for another 6 months until migration in September.
And to discuss some fiscal impacts, the Happy Valley Parkway / Interstate 15 interchange is included in the Virtual Capital Improvement Program budget for fiscal years 2015 to 2019. The total cost of the interchange is $55 million and is fully funded without spending any local city money. In addition to the Regional Transportation Mitigation Uniform Fee, or TUMF, monies, Caltrans and FHWA have graciously agreed to throw in the balance of the money needed for the construction of the interchange.
Thank you very much for your report. With that, does that conclude your report?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's get a round of applause. With that, we'll move on to City Manager's report. Please proceed, City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to keep this very brief. I'd just like to bring up 2 points. First, to Councilwoman Crane, I will look into the children's book issue that you mentioned earlier, and also to Councilwoman Namgoon for the bathroom issue at the local public schools. I will get back to you in 2 weeks' time. And finally, I'd just like to say I think I speak for everyone when I say that we appreciate the real city council members and staff and teachers for allowing us this opportunity and experience. And I would personally like for everyone to give a round of applause for the hard work and dedication that everyone has put in for the past 2 days, and for the careers that these people have for our beautiful city of Temecula.
Thank you very much, City Manager. Does that conclude your report?
Yes, it does, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Could I get a motion from the City Council to adjourn?
I move to adjourn this meeting.
I second that motion.
Thank you. We will do a verbal vote. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose? Thank you very much, everyone, for coming today.